as you point out. Who the hell is factcheck.org?
Well, that's the problem with fact-checking organizations. That should really be illegal. Like, I think if you're a fact-checking organization, we should have stringent rules on what influence is being peddled. Like, who's paying for these fact-checkers? Who's behind the scenes? What is the it should be very transparent. How did you determine whether or not this was true or false? Because there are a lot of things that get said. Like, I don't know if you saw this, but Elizabeth Warren got confronted, and it's on Twitter this morning. She got confronted about the amount of money that she's received from pharmaceutical drug companies. She said she's never received any money from pharmaceutical drug companies and never received any monies from any PACs. And then, of course, underneath it, Community Notes strikes again. And, of course, she received millions.
Yeah.
She's a fucking liar.
Well, and it's an arms race. How can pharma cloak the money that it's giving so that there's plausible deniability at the point that Elizabeth Warren is confronted or Bernie Sanders?
Bernie Sanders was hilarious. Only 1.5 billion. Only 1.5 million out of 200 million. Only 1.5.
Yep, that's what I saw
First
as
he
well.
tried to say nothing. Only the hardworking people in this country gave me money.
Well, I don't think the Democrats understand that it's over and that there was a vast infrastructure that made their feeble arguments viable, and that infrastructure is now collapsing. People are far more aware, and their lives aren't going to function anymore.
Well, it makes sense now that we're seeing these numbers because, okay, this was what was funding the infrastructure. Now we get it. Because it wasn't – otherwise, it's organic. This is the will of the people. This is how people are moving. It's not. It wasn't that at all. This was all organic, and it was really about control and money. It had nothing to do with helping people, making people better, giving aid to foreign countries. That's all a cloak and dagger bullshit show. The reality was it's about money.
Yeah, it's
money and influence.
It's always about power and limited resources.
Yeah.
And this was a new game taking place at a level that was hard to believe, and therefore many of us couldn't see it.
Did you see how they used software to map out 55,000 different NGOs that were used as a branch of the democratic system?
No, I didn't catch that.
I could send it to you. I think I sent it to you, Jamie, right? We went over it on the podcast before. It's so nutty that this was all kind of like hidden until they started using software to try to like figure out like and map out where all the influence goes. And the crazy thing about the NGOs, and this is one of the things that Mike Benz has gone like so deep into, it's essentially like they contribute to the Democratic Party, the government pays them. It's like it's all this like weird sort of like circular money transfer thing that's out in the open.
No, it's a positive feedback. The whole idea is power is utilized to free resources that garner more power, and it is the exact inverse of the system that we are supposed to have.
Yeah. It's very interesting.
Where we're headed, that's a harder question.
Where we're headed is we're going to own Gaza.
Somehow.
This is it. So Fractal Technology maps previously hidden connections between 55,000 liberal NGOs, revealing how tax dollars allegedly flowed through major institutions like Vanguard and Morgan Stanley to groups like the Chinese Progressive Association. This breakthrough tracking system can now monitor every dollar going to every NGO, exposing intricate funding webs that traditional tech couldn't detect. So, example, Black Voters Matter Fund's $4 million distribution network was invisible until quantum mapping revealed dozens of subsidiary organizations. The unprecedented mapping reveals a previously hidden web of financial relationships. And that's what it's really all about. And
yes. The problem is sometimes when I see like a list of preposterous scientific projects that have gotten big grants, I read it and I think they all sound preposterous, but I don't know. Some of these things are likely to have had a good explanation, and it just is not apparent in the soundbite. And some of them are every bit as preposterous as they seem. And so I can't look at a map like that and say what I would expect if the system was healthy. So I'm cautious about it. I don't think the system was healthy. I think the system was a racket from one end to the other. And I've been saying that we've been living in the era of malignant governance where there's basically no element of this you couldn't turn off and make us better. But we have to be suspicious also of our understanding of how a properly functioning system would graph in something like that, so that we don't overrun the train station when we get there.
Right.
And I will just say I was talking to a friend of mine who runs an Alaska Native corporation, which I don't know if we've talked about Alaska Native corporations before, but this is a corporation. It competes for federal contracts. It has some advantages in the competition for federal contracts, and all of the profits go to Alaska Natives. And it is finding itself in a very difficult to navigate battle because of all of the successes of Doge. So the Alaska Native Corporation is utilizing something called the 8A program. The 8A program is a program that gives advantages to disadvantaged people. And at some point, that ability to use the 8A program was granted to Alaska Native corporations. Well, the 8A program is now under attack by some large corporations, federal contractors, who do not like competition from things like Alaska Native corporations, and it is being portrayed as if it was based on race, which it isn't. Anybody can use it. It's not a race-based program, but because people are in a mood to dismantle all of this left-wing solution-making corruption, these mega corporations are finding it easy to target the 8A program, and they are persuading members of Congress that it doesn't belong. And this is going to be a tragic loss if this program, which works well, is dismantled in the fervor to go after all of the stuff that should never have been.
What does this program do exactly?
It provides a mechanism for disadvantaged people to compete for grants. It's really not race-based. Anybody,
So would you just have to live in Alaska?
No. So they're two separate things. Alaska Native corporations are for Alaska Natives.
Right. When you say Alaska Natives, you mean people who live in Alaska or
No.
Inuits?
I mean Arctic peoples.
Arctic peoples.
Yes.
So the original people of Alaska before we bought it for $50 from the Russians.
Exactly. We bought it for $50 from the Russians, and then after the discovery of oil in Prudhoe Bay, the U.S. government realized that it could not afford to give the natives of Alaska sovereign land rights because it was going to need to do things like put a pipeline to transport oil. So instead of giving them reservations and sovereign land rights, it gave them some abilities to compete for federal contracts as Alaska Native corporations.